sleepyheads, welcome back to Koala Moon. Tonight we have a collection of soothing dragon bedtime stories to help you fall asleep. Before we do, could you please tap subscribe? By doing this small thing, you'll let YouTube know you love what we do, which will help us grow. Let's get ourselves cozy, snuggle down, and I'll begin. This is Jupiter Twins, The Sleeping Dragon by Gillian Rogerson. Lily and Jake Jupiter were having a wonderful time at the Leora School of Magic. Not only had they met enchanted beings such as mermaids, centaurs and unicorns, but they'd also made many friends. Every day at the school was a new adventure. As well as their magic lessons, the pupils had household duties to attend to. The head teacher, Dr. Eleanor Howard, considered cleaning tasks to be just as important as learning magic spells. She said, pleasure could be found in mundane matters as well as exciting endeavours, and if one calmed their minds and became present in the moment, even cleaning windows could be a relaxing activity. The pupils at the school weren't as convinced as the head teacher was about housework, but nonetheless they took to their tasks with optimism. Yet, there was one task that no one wanted to do: cleaning the storage vault. Every time Dr. Howard asked for volunteers, the pupils would look away from her searching gaze and offer to do something else instead. Jake had noticed the disappointed look in the teacher's eyes when no volunteers stepped forward. So when she asked again about the storage vault, he put his hand up and said he would clean it, and his sister would help him. Lily was about to say she'd rather do something else, but seeing the delighted look on Dr. Howard's face, she smiled and said she couldn't wait to make a start on the storage vault. A few days later, the twins headed towards the storage vault with their cleaning bags in their hands, ready to tackle their task. Lily said, I wish we had something more exciting to do. I liked cleaning the stained glass windows in the Great Hall and looking at the stories in the glass. And I liked making hot drinks for the teachers, because we got to go into their offices and have a chat with them. That was fun. But I'm not sure about sweeping the floors of the vault. It doesn't sound very exciting, does it? Jake shrugged. It could be fun. Think about all the pupils who have been to these vaults before. Elves, fairies, centaurs, gnomes, and griffins. I bet some of them cleaned it too. Lily brightened up. Yes, that's true. I wonder if they use magic. I wish we could use magic. Not for all the cleaning, but maybe one spell to make it more fun. They reached the storage vault and arrived at an old wooden door. They heard a fluttering noise behind them and turned around to see a white butterfly flying towards them. The butterfly landed on the door and became still. There was a message written on its wings. It was from the head teacher. Dear Jake and Lily, thank you for offering to clean the storage vault. It hasn't been cleaned for a long time, and bearing this in mind, I will allow you to use 3 magic spells to help you with this task. I trust you will choose your magic spells wisely. Kind regards, Dr. Howard. Jake grinned at his sister and said, "Look, Lily, it looks like your wish has come true." Lily grinned back and said their cleaning work was about to become a lot more exciting. The white butterfly flapped its wings twice and disappeared. Jake pushed the door open. It creaked loudly. The twins stepped through the door and into the huge vault that ran the length of the school. The ginormous room had a red brick ceiling that was held up by stone pillars. Lines of wooden bookshelves stood like soldiers across the floor, and further along, tables were piled high with boxes. The twins were expecting a musty smell to come from the storage room, but they were pleasantly surprised to feel a warm breeze flow gently around them. The soft wind held a hint of outdoor freshness, and the twins inhaled a soothing scent that was fragranced with summer flowers and freshly cut grass. A twinkling cloud of fireflies flew through the open door and fluttered towards the curved ceilings. They landed on the ceiling and settled there, illuminating the way ahead for the twins. Lily said, "I feel like I'm in a magical world." "Me too," Jake agreed. A peculiar expression crossed Jake's face. Lily noticed it and knew what it meant. Her brother was getting a strong feeling about something. She asked him what he was thinking. "Something amazing is going to happen today," Jake said. He gave her an embarrassed smile. "I don't know what, but it's got something to do with the history of the school and something that's been hidden for a while. I could be wrong, but it's just a feeling I've got." Lily said she trusted his feelings. She suggested they explore the large room first, before getting on with their cleaning work. They headed towards the tables and looked at the boxes piled on them. According to the labels, the boxes contained old textbooks and school records. Some boxes held lost items which had never been claimed by anyone. Lily peeped inside one of the lost property boxes, hoping to find something interesting, but only saw a school scarf and hat. The twins walked towards the bookshelves and looked at the old books. Jake read some of the titles and said, "I'd love to read these. I wonder if Dr. Howard will let me borrow some later." "I'm sure she will." Lily ran her finger along the line of books and looked at her fingertip. She said, "It's not very dusty in here, and the floor looks quite clean too. I don't think it will take us long to finish our work." She took a yellow cleaning cloth from her bag of supplies and flapped it in the air. A twinkle alighted in Jake's eyes, and he said it was time to make the cleaning work fun. He asked Lily if there was a spell she would like to use. Lily looked at the cloth, then at the shelves. She knew which spell would be perfect. Lily held the cleaning cloth out and recited the words to the spell. The yellow duster lifted from her hand and twirled around in the air. Small yellow specks flew out of the duster. The specks turned into little yellow feathers. The feathers grew bigger and then flew off in all directions. The yellow feathers landed on the boxes, tables, and bookshelves and moved back and forth in a cleaning motion. They even flew towards the ceiling and gave it a good dusting too. The Jupiter twins watched in delight as the yellow feathers cleaned the whole of the vault. When the cleaning had been completed, Lily brought the spell to an end, and the yellow feathers vanished. She plucked the floating duster from the air and put it back into her cleaning bag of supplies. "All done," she said proudly. "Not quite," Jake said. He pointed to the floor and said they needed to give it a clean too, and he knew just the right spell that would help. He closed his eyes and his forehead creased in concentration as he tried to remember the right words. He cast his spell, opened his eyes, and grinned at Lily. Out of nowhere, an item appeared on the floor near their feet. Lily said, "It looks like our vacuum cleaner at home. That's not very magical, Jake." "You haven't seen what it can do yet," her brother replied. The vacuum lit up and hummed gently. It turned slowly around and began to move forward. Jake said, "It will pick up every bit of dust in super fast time. Watch this." He clicked his fingers. The magical vacuum cleaner zoomed across the floor like a race car. Off it went, rushing to the very end of the huge room. When it got to the end, it spun around and zoomed back towards the twins. Jake," Lily said, "it's heading towards us really quickly. Will it stop when it gets closer?" Jake nodded confidently. The vacuum sped straight towards them and showed no signs of slowing down. Jake was no longer confident that the machine would stop, so he grabbed his sister's hand and the twins ran out of the way. The vacuum spun around and went after them. "It must think we're dust too," Lily said as they ran along. "Jake, you have to stop it. Use another spell." Jake called out a stopping spell. The vacuum rushed towards a shelf of books, and at the last moment it stopped and gently bumped into the shelf. With a puff of smoke, the vacuum cleaner vanished. One of the books on the top shelf wobbled slightly and started to fall. With lightning-quick reflexes, Jake ran forward and caught the falling book. Phew, that was close. He looked at the book in his hands. "Hey, Lily, look at this book. It's all about dragons." Lily went over to her brother and looked at the picture on the cover. It showed a cream-coloured dragon with emerald green eyes, flying over green fields and towards some snow-capped mountains. Jake knew how much his sister loved dragons, so he passed the book to her so she could have a closer look. As he did so, a piece of folded paper fluttered free from the pages of the book. The paper hovered in midair and unfolded itself. The twins stared in amazement, as a tiny cream-coloured dragon flew out of the paper and circled the twins. It had emerald green eyes. Something else magically appeared from the paper. It was a building. The twins almost didn't recognize it at first, but as it grew bigger, they saw it was Leeds Town Hall, the very building that stood on the ground above the school. The tiny dragon flew towards the clock tower of the building and rested on the side of it. The dragon closed its eyes, fell asleep, and melted into the stonework of the tower. A second later, the town hall disappeared, taking the sleeping dragon with it. Lily looked at her brother in surprise. She said, "How did you make that happen?" "I didn't do anything," Jake replied. "It happened all on its own. Lily, I think this is why I had a weird feeling earlier. I think we were meant to find this book and see that dragon." "But what does it mean?" Lily asked. Jake shrugged. They discussed the matter for a few minutes but couldn't make any sense of it. They decided to take the book to their head teacher. They were certain she would know what it all meant. The paper that had flown free from the book was still hovering in the air, so Lily grabbed it and put it back inside the book. The twins left the vault and headed towards the head teacher's office. They weren't that surprised to see Dr. Howard waiting outside her office as though she were expecting them. The head teacher smiled at the twins and said, "You found something, haven't you? I had a feeling you might." Lily gave her the book and told her about the dragon and the town hall. Dr. Howard took the piece of paper from the book, unfolded it and looked closer. She said that whatever enchantment had been used on the paper was a one-off, and the small dragon was unlikely to appear a second time. She asked the twins to tell her again exactly what they had seen. The twins did so. The head teacher shook her head in disbelief and muttered to herself, "It can't be. I thought it was just a legend. And why would it appear now? Unless—" She looked at the twins and broke into a big smile. "Unless you two were meant to find it. I realize I'm not making any sense. Let me explain." Dr. Howard told them about the early days of the school and when it was first built. Stones were gathered from nearby caves and used in the fabric of the building. It is thought that one of the stones was a magical one and contained an enchanted sleeping dragon. When the stone was put in place, the dragon woke up and became visible. He was a friendly dragon and told the head builder about a secret portal in the clouds that led to the land of dragons. The dragon was the only one who knew the way, but he could carry a couple of people on his back, and that would allow them to enter the land too. The kind-hearted dragon offered to take the builder to the mystic land. Off they flew, and when the builder arrived, he was amazed at what he found. Not only did he meet many dragons who told him fascinating stories about their rich history, but he was also given magical gifts that he took back to the school and gave to the head teacher. Jake couldn't help himself from interrupting and asked, "What kind of gifts?" Dr. Howard replied, "That's what we don't know. We don't know much about the sleeping dragon at all, apart from what I've just told you. This story has been passed down through the ages until it has become more like a myth than something that actually happened. If it is true, we don't know if the sleeping dragon decided to stay in the land of dragons for good, or if he stayed in Leeds, perhaps somewhere near the school, or in the school somewhere. Let me check something. Come into my office." She went into her office and the twins followed her. Dr. Howard waved her hands in the air and a dozen floating maps appeared. Some of them looked like antiques. The head teacher swiftly examined the maps, and with a click of her fingers, she made them vanish. Dr. Howard said, "It seems that part of the magical stone that held the sleeping dragon was used later in the construction of the town hall, specifically the clock tower. I don't know who left this book in the vault, because I've never seen it before. Perhaps the first head teacher of the school left it there and placed an enchantment on it so that it only became visible to the right people at the right time." She smiled at them. "And that means the book was waiting to reveal itself to you, Jake and Lily. What for? We don't know yet." Jake and Lily looked at each other. They had the same question in their minds. Lily said, "Do you think the sleeping dragon is in the clock tower right now? And we can wake it up?" The head teacher nodded and said she wasn't sure how they were going to find the dragon or how they would wake him up, but she was sure the twins would think of something. She gave them the book and said she had every faith in them. Jake said, "You want us to find the sleeping dragon now, and to wake it up?" Dr. Howard nodded and added, "Yes, and if he offers to take you to the land of dragons, you have my permission to go. Make sure you're back in time for supper, though. It's strawberry trifle for dessert tonight. You don't want to miss that. And, of course, you must use any spells you feel necessary on your journey. You could start with a revealing spell to help you find the hidden doorway that will take you to the clock tower." She gave them a look to say they were dismissed. The twins left the office, closing the door behind them. They looked at each other, not sure what to say. Jake said, "I guess we're heading to the clock tower then. Shall I do the revealing spell for the hidden door?" Lily said yes. She opened the book and carefully looked at the pages. They were all blank. How peculiar. Jake recited the words of the spell and waited for something to happen. There was a noise of moving stone behind them. The twins turned around and saw a section of the wall moving to one side. A set of curved stone steps were revealed, which were moving upwards like the stairs on an escalator. The twins stepped onto the moving stairs and were taken upwards. A minute later, they arrived inside the clock tower. They looked out of the open sections at the streets of Leeds below them. They turned their attention to the sleeping dragon and started to examine the stonework of the tower. Their hearts were full of hope that they would find something. It was Lily who spotted something first. At the bottom of a stone column, she discovered a small engraving of a dragon. He looked like the one they had seen earlier flying in the storage vault. He was curled up, with his head resting on his tail. His eyes were closed. Lily took Jake by his arm and pulled him closer to show what she had found. Some instinct made Lily run her hand gently over the engraving. She whispered, "Wake up." The small dragon opened his eyes. They were as green as emeralds. He yawned and stretched out his arms and legs. He looked at Lily and Jake. He smiled and gave the twins a friendly wave. The twins waved back. The dragon let out another yawn. And then he began to grow. He grew and grew. He grew so big that he had to wrap himself around the outside of the clock tower. He popped his head through an open window and grinned at the twins. The people on the streets below didn't notice the dragon and carried on with their day. The dragon stopped growing and introduced himself. His name was Zavara, which, he told them, meant sleepy. The twins gave their names. Lily held the book up and said they'd found it in the storage vault. With a smile, Zavara said it was his idea to leave the enchanted paper inside the book. He told them how he'd met the man who was in charge of building the school many, many years ago, and how he'd taken him through a magic portal to the land of the dragons. Whilst they were there, the man was given precious gifts by the dragons, which he brought back to the school. The twins nodded eagerly and said their head teacher had told them the same thing, but she wasn't sure it was true or a myth. Zavara said, "It's true. I remember it well. The gifts were used in the school, but the elderly dragon who gave the builder his first gift was concerned there would come a time when more gifts would be needed for the school. I promised the elderly dragon I would leave a clue inside a book for when that happened. So I created that book that you're holding, Lily, and I put a spell on it. Once that was done, I curled up in my enchanted stone and fell asleep. I love sleeping, and I've had thousands of wonderful dreams. Would you like to know what gifts the builder was given?" The twins nodded again. The green-eyed dragon smiled kindly and said, "I can tell you what he was given, or I can show you. Would you like to come with me to the land of the dragons? Do you have permission from your head teacher to leave the school?" "Yes, and yes," Lily replied eagerly. The dragon said all would be revealed soon. He lowered his back, and the twins climbed on. They were soon airborne and flying over the city of Leeds. No one looked their way. The dragon flew towards some fluffy clouds and went through the middle of them. When they came out of the other side, the twins were no longer in Leeds, but in a different world. Lush green fields lay below them, and not far away they could see snow-capped mountains. Flying around the mountains were dozens and dozens of dragons in a variety of bright colours. More dragons were lying on the grass and basking in the sunshine. As they got closer to the mountains, the twins saw caves carved into the side of them. The caves were homes and had dragon families living inside. There were dragons everywhere, and Lily's face was a picture of happiness. Zavara came to a smooth stop at the foot of the mountain. Dragons swooped down from the sky and landed at his side. Resting dragons got up from the grass and hurried over to him. They welcomed the dragon and his visitors warmly. The chattering dragons stood to one side to let an elderly dragon walk through. She looked at the dragon with green eyes and welcomed him back. She said to the twins, "Ah, I see the time has come when your school is in need of magical gifts again, and you two have been chosen to collect them. May I ask your names, please?" Lily was too in awe of the dragon to speak, so Jake gave their names. The elderly dragon noticed the book Lily was holding and asked where she had got it from. She was still unable to speak, so Zavara explained. The elderly dragon said it would be perfect for carrying the gifts back to the school. She said she would supply the first gift and asked Lily to open the book. Lily opened the book and continued looking at the dragon in wonder. The dragon said, "My first gift is Dragon's Whisper." She let out a slow, long breath and created a shimmering cloud of sparkling water droplets. The droplets floated over to the book and gently landed on the page, where they formed an image of the elderly dragon with the words "Dragon's Whisper" underneath it. The dragon told Lily to give the book to her head teacher when they returned to the school, and she would know how to collect the dragon's whisper from the page and store it in jars so it could be used as an ingredient in magic spells. The other dragons stepped forward one by one and added more gifts to the book. A smile from a tree, a mountain's chuckle, magical morning dew, the evening song from a river, a promise from a bluebird, and many more. Each time a gift was given, a picture appeared in Lily's book with the name of the gift. It wasn't long before the pages were filled with magical ingredients. When the last gift was given, the green-eyed dragon told the twins it was time to head back to school. Lily and Jake thanked the kind dragons for their gifts. The elderly dragon said they must come back again soon, and they would give the twins another gift, a book of dragon stories that were full of adventure and mystery. The twins said they would love that and thanked the dragons again. The green-eyed dragon lowered his back and the twins climbed on. They soared upwards and headed towards a bank of fluffy clouds. They flew through the clouds, and when they came out of the other side, they were back in Leeds and flying towards the clock tower of the town hall. The dragon landed on the side of the building, and the twins jumped into the tower. Their head teacher was waiting for them. The twins told her everything, and Lily handed the book over. Dr. Howard smiled as she flicked through the pages. She said, "We've had these ingredients in the school for years. I had no idea they had come from the dragons. You two found this book at the perfect time because we were running low on those ingredients, and I didn't know where to get any more from. I'll gather them from the book and store them in the appropriate containers. You'll be using some in your advanced magic lessons soon. Thank you for collecting these. I shall see you downstairs in the dining hall soon." She said thank you to the green-eyed dragon and walked down the stone steps. Lily and Jake looked at the dragon. He was starting to grow smaller. He hopped into the clock tower and sat at the children's feet. The twins sat next to him. The dragon yawned and said it was time for him to sleep. But now that the twins knew where he was and how to wake him up, they could come back and see him any time, and they could have more adventures together. He rested his tired body against the stone pillar where Lily had first found him. He continued growing smaller and smaller. He leaned against the stone. melted into it and became an engraving again. He closed his green eyes and fell asleep. The twins returned to the school and went to the dining hall to join their friends. Later on, as Lily snuggled down in her bed, she thought about the wonderful dragons she had met. A soft smile settled on her face, and she sighed happily. She closed her eyes and gently drifted into a deep sleep. She dreamed of magical dragons and endless adventures. High on a mountaintop in Sleepy Forest, a baby dragon was getting ready to hatch from its egg. The parents of the dragon held hands and waited for their little one to appear. A single crack zigzagged down the glittering purple surface of the egg. The mother dragon said, "Oh, I wonder what our baby will look like. I wonder if they'll know how to fly." The father dragon smiled. Dragons are born knowing how to fly. Another crack ran down the egg. "What shall we call our little one?" the mother dragon asked. "We still haven't decided on a name yet." The father dragon replied wisely, "As soon as we see our baby, we'll know which name is perfect for them." A third crack appeared on the egg and ran all the way around it. The purple egg began to jiggle from side to side, as though the little dragon inside just could not wait another minute to get out. The egg rolled over and broke completely open. A baby dragon, with skin the colour of freshly opened leaves, jumped up and smiled up at his parents. His proud parents looked into his emerald green eyes and fell totally in love with him. To their surprise, their son began to do something quite unexpected. The little dragon shuffled his feet along the ground, waved his arms in the air, and wiggled his little dragon bottom. The mother dragon whispered, "What's he doing?" "I'm not sure," the father dragon whispered back. "Maybe he's got an itch that he needs to scratch." The confused parents looked more closely at their beautiful son. The little dragon nodded his head in time to a silent rhythm and tapped his feet on the ground. He clicked his fingers and began to hum a joyful tune. Then he jigged from side to side and kicked his legs in the air. He waved happily at his parents as he moved around. His mother and father waved back, but they didn't know why their son was moving in such a peculiar way. Just at that moment, a beautiful owl landed on the branch of a nearby tree. She fluffed her white feathers and settled herself more comfortably on the branch. She smiled at the parents and said congratulations to them on the birth of their son. The parents kept their eyes on their son, but moved closer to the owl and asked if she knew what he was doing. "Dancing," the owl replied. "And very good he is too. He's got a good rhythm going on there." Look at him go. He's making me want to dance too." The owl started to bop up and down on the branch. The mother dragon said, "But dragons don't dance. We fly, and we walk, and sometimes we run if we have to, but mainly we fly." The owl gave the parents a knowing look. "You used to dance, don't you remember? Didn't you two meet at a moonlight disco years ago? Isn't that where you fell in love with each other?" A dreamy look came into the parents' eyes, and they gazed fondly at each other. The mother dragon said, "Oh yes, we did meet at a moonlight disco. I've been so busy flying here, there, and everywhere that I've forgotten we used to dance." "Your son was born with a love of dance in his heart," the owl said. "Has he got a name?" "Oh, we forgot about that," the father dragon said. "But I have the perfect name for him." The parents went over to their dancing son and held out their arms to him. The little dragon danced over to them and into their arms. In a voice full of love, the father dragon said, "Disco. Your name is Disco. We've been waiting all day for you to come out of your egg." Disco repeated his name. He grinned, nodded, and said his name a few more times, as if he couldn't get enough of it. Then he jumped out of his parents' embrace and began to dance around the broken eggshell, whilst singing his name over and over again, and clicking his fingers and tapping his toes. The sight of their happy son made the mother and father dragon laugh in delight. They attempted to join in with his dancing moves, but they couldn't quite remember what to do and gave up after a while. Disco danced a little longer before flopping to the ground and falling fast asleep. The next day, the proud parents introduced Disco to the other dragons who lived on the mountain. Disco shyly said hello to the gathering of dragons, and then he began to dance. He just couldn't help himself. His feet just had to hop from side to side. His arms just had to wave back and forth, and his body just had to twirl and whirl around. The other dragons were astonished and asked the parents what Disco was doing. "Dancing," Mother Dragon replied, with a loving smile on her face. "But dragons don't dance," an elderly dragon said. "We fly, and we walk, and sometimes we run if we have to, but mainly we fly." Mother Dragon nodded. "That's what I thought, but then I remembered that we all used to dance. But we were so busy flying here, there, and everywhere that we forgot how to. Do you remember how to dance?" The elderly dragon frowned, as though searching for a memory. He said, "I'm not sure. Did we really dance?" Mother Dragon nodded. "We did. Disco was born knowing how to dance. He's got a natural rhythm in his heart, one that we all have. I keep trying to copy him, but my feet trip over each other. but I'm certain I'll remember how to dance again soon." The elderly dragon smiled. "I hope I remember too. Look at the fun Disco is having." The little dragon continued dancing and added a few wiggles and jiggles. He shimmied back and forth along the ground, humming happily to himself. Such was the joy on his little face that the other dragons began to smile. Some of them even tried to dance too, but they kept bumping into each other and had to keep saying sorry. Disco kindly showed them some of his simpler moves, but that didn't work either, and 2 young dragons ended up with their tails somehow tied together. The elderly dragon said, "I can see how good Disco is at dancing, but can he fly?" "Oh, we forgot about that," Mother Dragon said. Father Dragon asked Disco if he would like to learn how to fly. Disco said he would like that very much. His parents took him to the edge of the mountain and showed him how to open his wings and flap them back and forth. Disco copied them and soon found a rhythm in the flapping of his wings. His feet jigged merrily from side to side, as though dancing to the movement of his wings. When he was ready, his parents showed Disco how to soar into the sky. Disco's little face frowned in concentration as he launched himself into the air. The wind rushed beneath his wings and took him higher and higher. The little dragon smiled. He veered to the left and then to the right. Flying was amazing, totally amazing, and Disco loved it. He looked down and realized he could see the whole of Sleepy Forest below him. He saw lots of forest animals. Some were moving through the long grass, and others were grazing in the flower meadows. A few were wallowing happily in the rivers, and some were asleep in the trees. To his surprise and delight, he noticed some elephants were actually dancing. Disco had never seen anyone else dance before. He swooped a bit lower to get a better look. The group of dancing elephants saw him and waved their trunks in a cheery hello. Disco waved back. The need to dance was too strong for Disco to resist. He flew to the nearest mountain and landed on top of it. He folded his wings behind his back and began to boogie and bop. He twisted and twirled this way and that, and waved his arms around in the air. He hummed a happy tune. It was a melody that came straight from his heart. His parents landed next to him and watched lovingly as their little dancing dragon boogied cheerfully on the mountain top. He was a joy to watch. After a while, the dragon family took to the skies again. But even though Disco loved flying with his parents, the second they landed, he began to dance. He just couldn't help it. His parents loved flying with their son too, but they could see how much his face lit up with pure happiness every time he danced. After discussing the matter between themselves, they came up with an idea. That evening, as the dragon family were roasting marshmallows on an open fire, the mother dragon smiled fondly at Disco and said, "We've been thinking about how much you love dancing." With his cheeks full of warm marshmallows, Disco nodded. He did love dancing very much. Mother Dragon continued, "And we thought it would be wonderful if you met other animals who love dancing too. Perhaps you could even dance with them." Disco quickly swallowed the marshmallows. "Really? I would love that. When we were flying earlier, I saw some dancing elephants down in the forest. I'd love to meet them. Do you think they'd like to meet me?" "Of course they would," his father said. "You are an amazing little dragon with a very special talent." His mother said, "You should fly down to the forest tomorrow and meet those elephants. You might meet other animals who can dance too. And when you come back home later, you can show us any new moves you've learned. Perhaps the right dance will help us remember how to dance again." Disco promised to learn as many new dances as he could. He was sure one of them would be perfect for his parents. Early the next morning, Disco said goodbye to his parents and set off on his dancing adventure. He flew over the tops of the snow-capped mountains and swooped down to the forest. He landed near the elephants, who were dancing again. The elephants didn't notice the dragon at first, because they were too absorbed in the dance they were doing. The elephants had arranged themselves into a circle, and as they jigged to the left and then to the right, their long trunks waved joyfully in the air. An older elephant was sitting in the shade of a tree, playing a merry tune on a big drum. Disco watched the elephants as they shimmied to the right and then skipped to the left, moving in perfect time to the beat of the drum. Before too long, Disco felt the rhythm catching a hold of him. His feet began to tap, and his fingers clicked in time to the music. He moved closer to the elephants and watched their skipping feet. One of the smaller elephants noticed him, and with a smile she made space for Disco in the circle. Disco grinned happily and joined the dancing elephants. His steps were in perfect time with theirs, and he even added a little wiggle and whirl now and again. The elephants noticed his fancy moves and copied him. Soon, the elephants and the dragon had made up a completely new dance. When the dance had finished, Disco introduced himself and said thank you to the elephants for letting him join them. The small elephant said, "That was our first dance of the day. We're going to do another one now. You can join us if you like." "Do you know how to do the conga?" Disco said he didn't, but he liked the sound of it. The elephants organised themselves into a line, with Disco in the middle. Using their trunks, tails, and in Disco's case, their wings, the animals made a long line that stretched back into the trees. The elephant with the drum began to tap out an upbeat rhythm on his instrument, and off the animals went, dancing the conga through the forest. 4 steps and a kick to the left. 4 steps and a kick to the right. Disco picked up the movements in no time. It was a wonderfully happy dance, and it made him laugh with utter joy. He thought about the dragons back on the mountain, and was certain they'd be able to do the conga dance too. He would teach them the moves later. The elephants and the little dragon congaed through the forest with the drumming elephant jigging behind them, never once losing the beat on his drum. After a while, the elephants came to a stop, and the largest one told Disco their dancing was over for the day. But if Disco wanted to find more animals who loved dancing, he should visit the porcupine family, because they would be doing their morning ballet soon. They told him which way to go through the forest. Disco thanked the elephants again, and then went on his way. He had no idea what ballet was, but he'd find out soon. A few minutes later, he found the porcupine family. There were 5 of them, and they were standing on their tiptoes and gently twirling on the spot. They slowly swayed to the left and then to the right. Their arms held out elegantly, reaching to the sky. Disco thought they looked very graceful, and he was certain he'd never be able to move like that. The mother porcupine noticed the little dragon and welcomed him warmly. She said, "Are you the dancing dragon? I've seen you dancing on the mountain tops." Disco nodded. "I love dancing, but I don't think I could do what you're doing, though." She smiled at him and said, "You don't know until you try. Watch what I do and do the same." She held her arms out and waved them gently in the air, like ripples on a river. Disco copied her movements, and to his surprise, he discovered he was rather good at it. The porcupines showed him some more ballet moves, and even though some were trickier than others, Disco tried his best and did very well. He had a wonderful time. When the ballet dancing came to an end, the porcupines asked the little dragon to show them some of his dance moves. Disco boogied and shimmied. He whirled and he twirled. He bopped and hopped to his own beat. The porcupines followed his moves and mixed in some of their ballet movements too. And very soon, the dragon and the porcupines had made up a completely new dance. Disco showed the porcupines how to do the conga, which they absolutely loved. When the dancing was over, the porcupines thanked Disco for spending some time with them, and said if he wanted to meet other dancing animals, he should find the pink flamingos down by the riverbank, They showed him which way to go, and then said goodbye to the dancing dragon. Disco headed to the riverbank, practicing some of his new ballet moves along the way. He soon came to a group of bright pink flamingos who were standing along the riverbank. Disco was amazed to see that they were all balancing on one leg. The flamingos looked like they were waiting for something to happen. Disco waited too. And then something did happen. A turtle shuffled through the forest with a violin in her hands. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "I slept in. I just couldn't get out of my comfy shell this morning." She moved over to the waiting flamingos, sat down, and tucked the violin under her chin. She began to play a beautiful song. The sound of it caused the flamingos to start dancing along the riverbank in long, graceful strides with their heads held high. They strutted to the left, clicked their fingers 3 times, and then strutted to the right, before twirling around and starting their movements all over again. Disco's feet tapped to the rhythm of the turtle's tune. One of the flamingos noticed Disco and waved him over. He made room for the dragon and showed him how to strut in time with the others. It didn't take long for Disco to pick up the movements, and he enjoyed moving back and forth with the brightly coloured birds. He particularly liked the twirling around parts, and couldn't help adding an extra twirl and a double whirl sometimes. He added a couple of bops too. The flamingos noticed his moves and copied him, and soon a new dance was created. Disco stayed with the flamingos for a while and learned more of their dances, and in return he showed them some of the new ones he'd learned that day. He wasn't surprised to find out they loved doing the conga. After a while, the dancing came to an end, and the flamingos said they had to fly, but told Disco that if he wanted to continue dancing, he should head deeper into the forest, where he would find lots of animals who loved to dance. The little dragon thanked them and watched the pink birds as they flew away over the trees. He walked further into the forest until he heard the sound of music coming from somewhere. He followed the melody and arrived at a clearing where a trio of gorillas were playing guitars. Other gorillas were dancing in pairs and moving smoothly back and forth across the grass. Now and again, one of the dancing gorillas would spin around and dip to the ground whilst holding hands with their partner. The music was joyful, and Disco found himself bopping from side to side. The gorillas saw him and invited him to join them. Disco partnered up with a gorilla who was about his size, and soon the pair were waltzing around the ground as elegantly as the others. Disco couldn't help adding his own touches, with a spin here and a kicking leg there. His moves impressed the gorillas, and they did the same as the little dragon. And it wasn't long before the gorillas and the dragon were moving to a new dance. Disco stayed with the grooving gorillas a while longer, and even learned how to strum the guitar. Everyone was being so kind to him. He carried on through Sleepy Forest, on the lookout for more dancing animals. Disco soon came across a couple of red-furred foxes who taught him how to foxtrot through the blackberry bushes. Then he met a kind-faced panda who showed him how to perform a slow shuffle beneath the shady boughs of an old oak tree. Later on, he joined a dozen stripy tigers as they performed a tango across a wooden bridge, their tiger feet and dragon feet tapping a beat on the wood. Some time later, Disco took a rest at the side of a river and gazed in wonder as a group of smiling otters performed a synchronized swimming dance through the water. They asked Disco to join them, but he didn't like the idea of getting his feet wet. So he stood up and copied their movements on the dry land instead. The day wore on, and Disco carried on dancing with different animals. He boogied with badgers outside their burrows. He sambered with squirrels as they danced around a large tree. He met an elderly monkey who did a mamba whilst playing the mandolin. And he had a fabulous time dancing with some cheerful chipmunks who hopped and bopped through the forest. Disco had a wonderful time learning lots of new dance moves, and an even better time making new friends along the way. Most of all, Disco thought that making up new dances with the other animals was the best fun of all. The sun made its slow journey across the sky and headed towards the horizon. The first star of the night twinkled into view. The little dragon began to feel tired, and he couldn't stop himself from yawning. It was time for him to go home. He opened his wings and flew into the sky. But even though he was tired, his dragon feet still jigged a little jig as the memory of the day's dances lingered in his mind. As Disco flew through the darkening sky, he thought about the animals he'd met and all the dancing they'd done together. He'd had an amazing time and couldn't wait to do it all again. His mother and father were waiting for him on the mountain top. They hugged him and asked him about his day. The little dragon still had a small amount of energy left, so he showed his parents some of his new moves. More stars appeared, and a full moon shone down on the little dancing dragon. Disco was lost in the magic of his dancing and closed his eyes. He listened to the sounds of the night. Hoots came from treetop owls. A nightingale sang sweetly. The soft calls of good night echoed through the forest on the evening breeze. Disco felt the rhythm of the night surrounding him, like a soothing lullaby of relaxing sounds. He swayed gently from side to side. So lost was he in his nighttime dance that Disco didn't notice that all the other dragons on the mountain had silently gathered around him. They saw how slowly he was dancing and how his wings gently opened and closed as though he was flying. The dragons began to copy his soothing dance, and they softly swayed to the melody of the evening too. They smiled gently at each other. This was a dance they could all do easily. Still with his eyes closed, Disco yawned, and yawned again. His feet finally came to a stop. Mother Dragon scooped her son into her arms and took him into their cozy cave. She placed him in his bed and tucked a warm cover around him. She kissed him good night. She returned to the dragons and joined them as they danced their special nighttime dance. Very soon, and one by one, the dragons remembered how to dance. The moon shone down brightly on the dancing dragons as they discoed merrily through the night. Isla and the Bravery Dragon by Alicia Ainsley. Isla had been attending her new school for almost 6 weeks, and the half-term holidays were just around the corner. She'd made several friends that she played with at break times, and she'd got to know everyone in her class. She had taken a turn looking after the class pet and taking it home for the weekend, and she'd bonded with her lovely teacher, Miss Fudge. By all accounts, Isla had settled in really well at her new school. She skipped into the playground every morning, looking forward to the day ahead, and she greeted her parents with a smile every afternoon when she was collected to go home. Her first parents' evening had been a positive one, and she'd received wonderful words of praise from Miss Fudge. Her parents had been so impressed with Isla's report from Miss Fudge that they had taken Isla out for dinner to celebrate. They had gone to her favourite pizza restaurant and let her get a big chocolate fudge sundae for dessert as a treat. Isla's favourite subjects were English and PE. She loved running and playing games on the school field, and she really enjoyed writing poems. Isla had written a poem all about her baby brother Freddie that impressed Miss Fudge so much that she pinned it up on the classroom wall. Isla had beamed with pride as she received her gold star sticker and watched her classmates read her poem from the wall. Isla's new best friends were called Charlie, Jada, and Kara. Every break time, they would all sit together to eat their packed lunches and then head out to the playground to play games of make-believe, practice their skipping chants, and perfect their handstands and cartwheels. One lunchtime, they even formed their own girl band and rehearsed several songs and dances all lunch long. Things weren't just great at school, but Isla also loved her new house. Her mummy and daddy had let her paint her room in the lilac colour she wanted and allowed her to pick out her flowery pink bedsheets. Their garden was twice the size of the one they had at their old house. Isla was very happy in their new town, their new house, and her new school. But even though Isla was very happy and content, some days she woke up and just felt a bit more wobbly than usual. Sometimes, if there was something worrying her a little bit, she would become quieter and not feel very energetic or in the mood to join in with things. Once, Isla felt a bit wobbly before she had a spelling test that she felt unprepared for. There were some tricky words on the list of spellings they had to prepare, and Isla wasn't sure that she would get all of them right. She had practiced her spellings several times with her daddy, but she still didn't feel very confident about a couple of the words. When the day of the spelling test came around, Isla didn't want to go to school. She thought that she would spell the words wrong and disappoint her teacher, Miss Fudge. With a lot of persuasion, her parents managed to convince Isla to go to school. Isla and her mummy walked up to the classroom door, and Miss Fudge could see that Isla looked a little worried and was carrying a small toy dragon to comfort herself. "Good morning, Isla," Miss Fudge greeted her in her usual cheery manner. "Who is this little friend you've brought with you to school today?" Isla quietly explained that the green toy dragon was called Bravo. Bravo made her feel better when she felt sad. Miss Fudge looked concerned and asked Isla why she felt sad today. Isla admitted that she was nervous about the spelling test. She'd tried really hard to practice her spellings, but there were some words that she kept getting wrong. She kept getting the letters all muddled up. Miss Fudge smiled kindly and reassured Isla that it didn't matter if she got some of the spellings wrong. That's why she came to school. She was here to learn. Some things take a little longer to learn and get right than others, and that's okay. Isla let out a little shy smile and hugged her toy dragon closer to her chest for reassurance. Miss Fudge noticed how much she was clinging onto the toy and asked her if she would like to bring Bravo into class today. He could sit by her while she did her spelling test and help her be brave, even when she wasn't sure of the correct spellings. Isla's mummy thought that was a great idea, and so did Isla. Isla walked inside the classroom with Bravo in her arms, hung up her bag on her peg, and prepared to take on the day with more optimism. Miss Fudge suggested that Isla keep Bravo in her book tray to keep him safe, and she could get him out any time she felt like she needed his help. When the spelling test came around just before break time, Isla felt butterflies beginning to flutter in her tummy. She looked at Miss Fudge, and she caught her eye. Miss Fudge whispered to Isla across the classroom, "You can get out your bravery dragon if you want." Isla slid out of her chair and over to her book tray. She opened it up and pulled out little Bravo. She placed him on her desk, looking right at her, and left him there as she took part in the spelling test. Everything was going well, and Isla remembered how to spell almost all of the words. But when she got to the 9th and 10th words, Isla couldn't work out how to spell them. She started to get a little frustrated, and her brain felt boggled. She was about to give up and throw down her pen in exasperation when she looked at Bravo, her bravery dragon, sitting on her desk. His beady black eyes gazed back at her. Isla picked up Bravo and held him to her chin. She inhaled his familiar scent, felt his soft, fuzzy material, and rustled the beans within his belly between her fingers. She took a deep breath in and slowly breathed out again. She closed her eyes and breathed in again, smelling Bravo's comforting aroma, and breathed out. She felt calmer already. Isla opened her eyes and looked back at the piece of paper in front of her. She took in the sight of the last 2 words she had struggled to spell and inspected them. They didn't quite look right, but they didn't look too far from the correct spelling either. She liked what Miss Fudge had called Bravo, a bravery dragon. It was a good name, because he did make her feel better and a bit braver. Isla imagined that she was as brave as Bravo and picked up her pen. She crossed out the last 2 words on her list and had another go at spelling them out. When she was satisfied that she had given it a good go, she placed down her pen and waited for Miss Fudge to collect her piece of paper. It was break time, so Isla and all her fellow classmates headed out to the playground to play. She felt a little bit better now that the spelling test was over, and she left Bravo behind in her book tray so that she wouldn't misplace him outside. During the children's break time, Miss Fudge marked everyone's spelling tests, ready to hand out the results when they came back to class. Upon her return to the classroom, Isla picked Bravo back out from her book tray as she waited to receive her spelling test results. She wanted to get all of the words right, but she had really struggled with the last 2 words. She clutched Bravo the bravery dragon tightly as Miss Fudge approached her table and took a deep breath in, imagining herself to be as brave as a dragon. Pretending to be brave was proving to be helpful for Isla. She found that the more she practiced and pretended, the braver she actually felt. Miss Fudge placed Isla's spelling test results on her desk and whispered, "Well done, Isla. Great job." Isla inspected her test results and was amazed to see that she had got 9 out of 10 spellings right. Taking the time to retry spelling the last 2 words had paid off. Isla had got one of the difficult spellings right on her second attempt. The word that she had misspelled was only a little mistake. She had only put 1 letter L instead of 2. It was a simple mistake that she could rectify in future. Isla felt so much better. The spelling test hadn't gone as badly as she had anticipated. She had actually done very well. Isla squeezed Bravo, her toy dragon, tightly with thanks for his support and placed him back in her book tray. She didn't think she would need his help the rest of the day. Isla was beginning to notice that with Bravo the Bravery dragon by her side, she could get through almost anything that made her nervous. All she had to do was imagine she was as brave as a dragon and feel it too. Bravo helped Isla get through several tricky situations. One instance was when Isla went to the park and fell over, scraping her knee. She had been afraid that her mother's antibacterial wet wipe might sting the cut, so she held on to Bravo tightly and closed her eyes. To her surprise, the wet wipe didn't hurt at all, and Isla's mummy stuck a big plaster over her grazed knee and applauded her for being such a brave girl. Another time Bravo helped Isla be brave was when she had just started at her new school. She was still getting used to her new surroundings and attempting to make new friends, but sometimes she could feel a little lonely and missed her old school and classmates. So one day, when she was feeling particularly homesick for her old school, she brought Bravo the toy dragon out with her at playtime to keep her company. Isla watched the other children play and run around together, while she sat on a bench and cuddled Bravo. After a few minutes, Isla was approached by a couple of girls from another class who'd spotted her across the playground. They started asking her questions about her dragon toy, and Isla plucked up the courage to return their conversation. After a few minutes, the girls invited Isla to play with them, and Isla felt a surge of excitement and relief flood through her. She hopped up instantly from the bench and followed the girls to the other side of the playground, with Bravo the dragon in tow. But Bravo the dragon's bravery powers were about to be pushed to the limit. Every week, a different class would take turns performing a presentation to the rest of the students in the school. They would put on a presentation all about a topic they'd been studying that term. This week, Isla's class were due to perform in assembly. Their presentation, led by Miss Fudge, was all about the ancient Romans they had been studying in history. They had been preparing every afternoon, all week long. They had all learned a song to sing together, complete with memorable actions, and everyone had a solo spoken line to say. Isla had been practicing her solo line at home with her parents and was feeling confident that she knew it well. She had practiced saying it in her big, loud voice, just like her drama teacher had taught her. And every time they practiced their presentation in class, she spoke very well. Isla was looking forward to their presentation in the end of week assembly. However, when Friday rolled around, Isla felt the butterflies return to her tummy. Her mummy had styled her curly hair into plaits, and she looked very smart for the presentation. The warrior's shield she had made in class was ready to show off in the assembly, and when she rehearsed her line, it was still firmly in her head. She knew it perfectly. As Isla's mummy dropped her off at school, Isla turned to her and confessed, "I'm a little bit nervous about speaking in front of the whole school in assembly." Isla's mummy promised she would be absolutely fine. She had practiced and practiced all week, and she knew her lines so well that she could say it in her sleep. Besides, if she was feeling especially nervous, she always had Bravo, the Bravery dragon, to turn to for help. Isla smiled happily and hugged her mother goodbye. Then she headed inside her classroom to get ready for the presentation. Everyone in her class was so excited for the assembly. Everybody's mummy had styled their hair, especially for the occasion, and everyone's uniform was particularly neat today. Miss Fudge ushered them all to line up by the classroom door so that they could walk into the hall and practice before the assembly began with the whole school. Isla sneakily tucked Bravo the dragon under her jumper and carried him with her into the school hall. They all sat down on the benches at the front of the hall, and Miss Fudge set up the picture slideshow on the screen behind them. Isla noticed that her nerves felt different today. She was still a little nervous about speaking in front of everyone in the school, but she felt the butterflies fluttering in her stomach turn into more of a buzz, like a buzzy bee vibrating in her belly. She actually felt pretty excited. She tapped Bravo the dragon, who was still secretly tucked under her jumper, and felt his bravery passing through into her tummy. His magic was working already. Miss Fudge allowed them all to practice their lines one more time before the other students would start filing into the hall for assembly. Everybody spoke their lines confidently and proudly, and Miss Fudge said she was pleased as punch that they all sounded so brilliant. But Isla noticed that there was one person in the class who wasn't speaking as loudly as normal. Ezzy, a boy that sat at her table in class, had spoken very quietly, so quietly that it was almost a whisper. Isla leaned forward on her bench and caught Ezzy's attention. "Are you all right, Ezzy?" Isla asked him gently. Ezzy looked at Isla with big, cheerless eyes. "Not really," he mumbled. "I'm feeling very nervous. I keep forgetting my words and I'm worried I'll forget them in front of the whole school." Isla smiled encouragingly and replied, "You won't forget your lines, Ezzy. Just say them as confidently as you have in all our lessons. You've always got them right so far." Isla thought Ezzy could use a dose of confidence, like what Isla got from Bravo, her bravery dragon. She placed her hand on the beanie toy beneath her jumper and paused. Maybe Ezzy needed a bravery dragon more than she did today. Isla slipped the toy out from underneath her jumper and passed it to Ezzy. "Use my bravery dragon for the assembly," Isla suggested thoughtfully. "He's called Bravo, and I use him whenever I feel nervous or scared. All you have to do is hold him close when you feel worried. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine you are as brave as a dragon. Then Bravo will give you some of his bravery for you to use. Ezzy took the green beanie toy from Isla and held it carefully in his hands. Don't you need it? Ezzy asked with confusion. Isla smiled and calmly replied, I don't think I need it today. I think I already have a lot of bravery within me. Ezzy tucked the dragon toy under his jumper, just like Isla did, and practiced closing his eyes, breathing deeply, and picturing himself as a brave dragon. The hall filled up with all the other students in school, and the young audience sat cross-legged on the shiny wooden floor, awaiting Miss Fudge's class presentation. Miss Fudge led and directed the children to perform the presentation they had been practicing all week. They began with their song and then moved on to the lines. One by one, each student in the class stood up from the bench and recited their solo speeches. They taught the other kids in school how they had learnt that the ancient Romans were a very intelligent civilization who built many impressive roads, some of which even still exist today. They also described how the Romans enjoyed watching chariot races for fun and gladiator fights in a giant arena called the Colosseum. When it was Isla's turn to say her line, she stood up tall and recited it, loudly, clearly, and confidently. Her face was glowing with delight as she finished her line, and she felt proud of herself for being so brave without the help of her bravery dragon. Maybe she didn't need Bravo very much anymore. When it came to Ezzy's turn to speak, everybody looked at him expectantly. Isla could see Ezzy sitting with his eyes closed, inhaling deeply while clutching the toy beneath his jumper. There were a few moments of silence as everybody waited for him to speak. Miss Fudge whispered Ezzy's name to catch his attention, and the boy sat next to him nudged him gently to remind him to speak. Suddenly, Ezzy stood up and opened his eyes, looking out to the back wall of the hall, and delivered his line with a roar. He spoke so loudly and clearly that everyone was blown away by his confident performance. Once his line was over, he sat back down on the bench, and Isla saw his shoulders relax and his whole body deflate with relief. As he sighed and looked at Isla, who was staring at him from down the bench, he grinned and gave her 2 big thumbs up before whispering excitedly, "It worked! It worked! I can't believe it worked!" The class presentation ran perfectly, and when they finished, the whole school gave them a big round of applause, including a few cheers. Miss Fudge led the students back to the classroom, and they all celebrated a successful assembly together with a tin of cookies that Miss Fudge had baked herself. Everyone couldn't stop talking about how loud Ezzy had spoken, and Miss Fudge gave him a gold star sticker for his terrific performance too. Ezzy was beaming from ear to ear all the rest of the morning, and Isla couldn't wipe the smile from her face either. It had been so nice to see her toy help someone else in the same way it had helped her for so long. At break time, Ezzy returned Bravo the dragon to Isla and thanked her for letting him borrow the toy. Now you can use the dragon to help you when you're feeling nervous again, Ezzy stated with a smile. Isla took her toy back and smiled, but she had a feeling that she wouldn't be needing Bravo's help much anymore. Now that she knew how to find her own dragon courage within herself, she didn't need to rely on her toy any longer. Perhaps Miss Fudge could find a use for the toy instead. Whenever there were other children who needed help finding the bravery that was already inside of them. This is The Baby Water Dragon by Alicia Ainsley. Magical creatures are truly special. Could you imagine how amazing it would be to possess your own magical powers and be able to do incredible things such as fly or make things appear out of thin air? If you could be a magical creature, what would you be? What special powers would you like to possess? What remarkable adventures will you embark upon? Have a think. Have you got it? Well, for one little baby born in the heart of Sleepy Forest, he wanted to be nothing more than what he was, because this little baby was lucky enough to be a baby water dragon. Have you heard of water dragons before? Or fire dragons, or earth dragons, or maybe even air dragons? No? Well, don't worry, I will tell you all about them. There are many types of dragon that exist within Sleepy Forest. They all look very different and have very different types of skills and powers, but they are all equally as friendly and kind as each other. All types of dragons work as a team with their own special duties to keep the inhabitants of Sleepy Forest as happy as can be. As you can probably guess, fire dragons breathe fire from their mouths. They're very large, with black and grey scaly skin that helps them blend in with the rocks on the mountainside or the edge of a volcano. On particularly chilly days, they help keep the sun warm by breathing their magical fire onto it, heating it up and keeping it burning bright. And when the animals of Sleepy Forest are cold, the fire dragons make sure that they all have a warm fire to heat themselves up around and cook their food on. The fire dragons are very helpful creatures. The air dragons spend their days flying through the skies. Their scales are white and silver to blend in with the clouds in the sky, but they return to Earth to sleep each night. The air dragons have huge wide wings that spread out like paragliders and assist them in soaring through the air to keep watch over everyone in Sleepy Forest. The earth dragons cannot fly. Instead, they stay on the ground and look after the earth. Earth dragons are green to blend in with the grass and the trees that they tend to. Earth dragons are the gardeners of Sleepy Forest, and they keep everything looking in tip-top condition by trimming the bushes with their talons and creating paths for animals to walk along by stomping the ground with their big, clumpy feet. They have a great eye for detail and are especially good at arranging flowers. And finally, the water dragons. They live within the rivers and lakes of Sleepy Forest. They start off with blue skin to blend in with the waters, but their skin can change colour to match the shades of the riverbeds. They are very good at camouflaging themselves. Water dragons can swim faster than any other creature, and they love to dance and sing. Water dragons are the key protectors on the ground of Sleepy Forest, as they can move through the rivers unseen and see the things that the air dragons cannot spot from up in the sky. All dragons are rare, and new baby dragons are only born once in a blue moon. All of the dragons lay their eggs and keep them together in the heart of Sleepy Forest. When the blue moon comes, it shines its mystical lunar light down onto the dragon's nest, and the eggs begin to hatch. Nobody knows what type of dragons will emerge from the eggs. It's always a surprise. So on one particular night when the blue moon came and a nest of hatchlings began to be born into the world, the adult dragons looked on in eager anticipation. They couldn't wait to see how many of each type of dragon would be joining their tribe. The eggs hatched one by one. Crack, crack, the eggs crackled as tiny little scaly noses pushed their way out. First popped out an air dragon, and the adult air dragons flapped their wings with delight. The baby air dragon fluttered over to its family, using its teeny tiny silver wings to get there. Next, a fire dragon hatched, emerging from a plume of smoke within its eggshell. The little fire dragon coughed and spluttered from the smoke, and the adult fire dragons roared in celebration, guiding the little guy over to their group. Then another air dragon followed, and an earth dragon, then a baby fire dragon again, and an extra earth dragon. The adult water dragons were starting to worry that there would be no baby water dragons born this time. But then, when the last egg remained, everyone waited patiently as the baby dragon inside delicately pressed its way through the shell. The baby dragon slithered out of the egg, shimmering with beautiful silvery white skin, with two dinky curved horns on the top of its head. All of the adult dragons looked at this baby with intrigue. It appeared to be a baby water dragon, but with pale skin instead of blue like everybody else. The baby water dragon gazed up at everyone around, and it smiled and giggled with glee as it slithered over to its family of water dragons. The adult water dragons tilted their heads up to the sky and released a soothing, harmonious song into the air to welcome the little baby to their family. The baby was promptly named Enon, and all of the dragon families went their separate ways to begin raising the new babies in the ways of their dragon kind. Baby Enon the water dragon might have looked different to the rest of his family, but he was a naturally gifted water dragon. Enon could swim as fast as the adults straight away. He slipped and slid through the rivers that ran through Sleepy Forest with ease, and even some of the older dragons struggled to keep up with him. All water dragons are naturally gifted at singing, and Enon's sweet voice complemented the voices of his peers perfectly. Enon delighted in joining in with their group songs, and would leap and dance through the water as they sang. He had a joy and a spark for life that inspired everyone around him. On Enon's first day at Dragon School, there had never before been a keener student. Enon sat right at the front of the class, in front of the teacher, eager to learn more about the world around him and his fellow dragon kind. "Can I sit next to you?" Enon heard a little voice ask from behind him. He twisted his long neck around to see a green baby earth dragon standing behind him. "Yes, of course you can," Enon agreed, and the little green dragon plunked herself down next to him. "I'm Emerald," the green dragon replied. "Today is my first day at dragon school." Enon smiled and sat up straighter. "It's my first day too," he said excitedly. "My name is Enon. It's nice to meet you." The rest of the class of baby dragons settled down around them as the teacher began to speak. Their teacher was called Miss Blossom, and she was an earth dragon, just like Emerald. "Good morning, everyone," Miss Blossom greeted them all warmly. "Welcome to your first day at Dragon School. We are going to learn lots of interesting things today, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you all. But first, let's start with something important. Can anyone tell me what a dragon's quest is?" The young students all looked at Miss Blossom with blank, wide eyes. They were all silent. Nobody knew what she meant. "Well, I am very pleased to be able to tell you all about it then." Miss Blossom smiled, sitting herself down in front of the mini dragons. "All dragons protect the world and make sure that everything is running as it should be. But each dragon also has a special duty. Every dragon has a special human out there in the world. Your quest is to find your special human, and only then will you discover your true destiny." The baby dragons gasped and sighed with amazement. "Wow!" exclaimed Emerald. Enon was very intrigued by this exciting information. He loved the idea of an adventurous quest. "How do we find our special human, Miss Blossom?" Enon questioned his teacher, eager to know more. "Nobody quite knows," Miss Blossom replied. "Not all dragons find their special humans. Some dragons spend their whole lives searching, so if you find your human, then you are very lucky indeed. They say that all you can do is follow your instincts and follow the call of your heart, and you will find the one you are destined to protect." Anon and Emerald were blown away. The youngsters had thought that their only job was to look after Sleepy Forest. But somewhere there were others who needed their help even more. A special human just for them. Enon and Emerald left their first day of school feeling proud to be dragons and enthusiastic to learn even more. But they were particularly interested in the quest to find their special human. "Do you think that we have special humans?" Emerald asked Enon as they walked home from school. "Of course we do," Enon proclaimed enthusiastically. "The only reason some dragons haven't found theirs is because they haven't been looking hard enough. I'm going to find mine. I know it." Emerald and Enon went home that day and told their families all about what they had learnt at school, and the adult dragons were pleased that they had had such a nice time. But Enon couldn't stop thinking about his quest. That night, as baby Enon laid down to sleep, He thought about his special human and wondered what they might be like. As he drifted off to sleep, he envisioned a human boy glittering with gold in the middle of a pool of water. Enon could see that this boy was very special. Little Enon knew that he had to find him. The next day, Enon woke and decided that he was going to embark upon his quest. His family of water dragons told him that there was no need to rush, as he was only still a baby. He could go on his quest when he was older. But Enon was determined. He had a feeling that he was needed by his special human already, and he needed to go and find him. Enon packed a little bag to take with him, filled with a compass, some chocolate biscuits, and a little present to give to his special human once he found them. It was a shiny pebble that he had found at the bottom of the river in Sleepy Forest yesterday. He thought that it was rather beautiful, and he wanted to give it to his human when he met him. Enon set off on his journey through the forest. He didn't know exactly where to look, but he decided that if he didn't try, he would never know. Enon slinked his long, slippery silver body into the river and started to swim. Instead of swimming at his usual fast pace, he slowed down and meandered through the rivers. If he swam too fast, then he might miss his special human, so he had to take it slow and go with the flow. Enon had been swimming through the rivers of Sleepy Forest for a few minutes when he spotted his school friend, Emerald the Earth Dragon, lying down by the side of the river. "Hi, Emerald," he greeted her, popping up out of the water and surprising her. "Oh, hello, Enon," she giggled, rolling over onto her green belly. "Where are you going?" Enon told her that he was going to search for his special human. "Oh, can I come with you?" Emerald begged excitedly. "Maybe I can find my special human too." Enon happily welcomed her to join him on his quest. So Emerald quickly grabbed a bag with a map, a banana, and a gift for her special human too, in case she met them. She chose a cute white daisy that she had been admiring in the grass and placed it in her bag. The two baby dragons journeyed together through Sleepy Forest on their quest. Enon swam in the water, while Emerald walked alongside on the banks of the river. After a while of walking around and not seeing anyone, they stopped for a break to consult their map. "Where are all the humans?" Enon queried, looking over Emerald's shoulder to take a closer look at the map. Emerald pointed to the land on the outskirts of Sleepy Forest. "There are meant to be some humans there, and there are also meant to be some humans over there by the mountain." Emerald worked out, pointing at locations on the map. "But I don't know if there are many humans here in Sleepy Forest. They might be really far away." Despite this news, Enon didn't feel disheartened. He knew that he would find his special human no matter how far he had to travel to get to them. All of a sudden, they heard a rustling coming from the trees behind them. They turned around and saw a young dragon shaking and shimmying its way through the trees. The dragon was dancing. "Hi, guys!" The dragon greeted them with a big, friendly smile. "Why are you dancing?" Emerald chuckled, mesmerized by the dragon's moves. The small, purple dragon replied, "It's always a good time to dance. It makes you feel so much happier. Why don't you try it?" Anon and Emerald started to boogie along with the dancing dragon and giggled with glee as they did. "You're right. It does make you feel happier," Enon agreed as he twirled and whirled in the river. "What's your name?" The dancing dragon informed him that his name was Disco. "Disco the dragon?" Emerald repeated with amusement. "That's a perfect name for you." Disco, Enon, and Emerald boogied together until the baby dragons fell to the floor, laughing so hard that they couldn't dance any longer. Enon decided to take this opportunity to ask Disco if he knew where they could find some humans around Sleepy Forest. Disco suggested, "Well, I just came back from a dance party with a family that lives in a tree house on the other side of the forest. You can find some humans there." Enon and Emerald were delighted that there were humans living so close by in the forest. They thanked Disco for his help and his little dance lesson, and they set back off on their quest to find the treehouse. They walked for an hour longer and eventually came upon the giant treehouse in Sleepy Forest. "Here we are," Emerald declared excitedly. "Shall we go say hello to the humans?" Anon paused and thought. He didn't know if his special human was here or not, and they couldn't just walk up to every human in the world to see if they were his special human. He decided to wait and see if, when the family came outside, he felt drawn to them. After all, their teacher, Miss Blossom, had said that a dragon had to follow the call of their heart to find their special human. Enon and Emerald sat down beneath the trees and waited to see if the family who lived in the treehouse came outside. Enon opened up his packet of chocolate biscuits and shared them with Emerald, and she split her banana in half and gave a piece to Enon. They waited patiently under the trees and rested their little legs. After some time, they were starting to get tired of waiting and began to drift off to sleep. At that moment, the front door of the treehouse creaked open and 4 children rushed outside and began climbing down the trunks of the trees to play on the forest floor. Enon hopped to his feet and watched the children intently. He looked from child to child and tried to focus. Was his heart telling him that his special human was any of these children? Did he recognize any of them from his dream about the golden boy that he had had the night before? But as he focused and thought, he found himself giving up. He didn't feel like any of these humans were the right one. Anon shook his head at Emerald, and she shook her head back at him. They brushed off their crumbs and pulled back out their map. "We will have to go closer to the humans by the mountain," Emerald decided, pointing at the map. "That's where the nearest people are from here." Enon and Emerald weren't ready to give up yet, and they moved their little bodies back into their original positions for their quest. Enon swimming through the water, and Emerald on the earth by his side. The baby dragons felt like they had been walking for hours and hours, and they were starting to think that they might not find their special humans today before they had to head home for dinner. They were close to the edge of Sleepy Forest, and they could see a big mountain top peeping up above the trees, far off in the distance. They weren't too far away now from the nearest humans. "I think we're almost there," Emerald announced, urging Enon onwards, despite how tired she was. "Maybe we should use your compass, just to make sure that we're heading in the right direction." The baby dragons consulted their compass and tried to work out which way they needed to go to get to the human kingdom. However, neither of them had ever used a compass before, and they were getting very confused. All of a sudden, they heard footsteps trudging down a nearby path through the trees. They turned to look, and to their delight, they saw a human man walking along with several logs of chopped wood underneath his arm. Enon felt his heart begin to flutter, and he felt drawn to follow the man. He swam closer to the path that the man was walking along and inspected him closer. The man had brown hair and a thin, bristly beard. He wore big, clumpy boots and carried a satchel on his shoulder. The man had kind eyes, but they looked very tired, like he hadn't slept properly in days. As Enon watched the man walk along, blissfully unaware of the two baby dragons nearby, he felt a magnetic pull to follow him. "Follow the call of your heart," Enon reminded himself. Enon secretly followed the man through to the edge of the forest, and Emerald tiptoed behind, jumping from tree to tree so that she remained out of sight too. When they reached the end of the forest, they saw a great big kingdom spread up the side of the mountain. There were houses and castles and turrets snaking all the way up the mountainside, and lots of humans were bustling around the streets, going about their business. To Enon's delight, there were lots of waterfalls and rivers running all the way up the mountainside too, providing him with the perfect way to visit the kingdom unnoticed. Enon and Emerald followed the man all the way up into the kingdom and to the man's house. He lived in a little stone house with a workshop on the side. Enon and Emerald crept up to one of the windows and peeked inside. "Do you think that this man is your special human?" Emerald whispered to Enon. "I think so," Enon replied. his heart beating faster and harder than before. I feel all tingly inside. Enon and Emerald watched as the man placed the wood in the fireplace and attempted to light the fire, but to no avail. He rubbed his hands together and blew hard into them, trying to warm them up. "Oh no," cried Anon. "He went to get firewood from the forest because he's so cold. If only I was a fire dragon and I could help him." When the man left the room again, Emerald quietly hopped through the open window and over to the fireplace. "I know how to make fire without breathing it out of my mouth," she announced proudly. "All you have to do is rub 2 sticks together as fast as you can, like this." Emerald grabbed 2 small sticks that the man had gathered from the forest and started to rub them together vigorously. All of a sudden, a spark lit and the sticks caught fire. Anon was absolutely flabbergasted. The earth dragons were very smart indeed. Emerald placed the sticks of fire on top of the pile of wood that the man had brought home, and the fireplace lit up with warmth and light. Emerald quickly hopped back out of the window as the man and his wife came into the room. They saw that the fire had lit up, and they laughed with confusion. "We must have a guardian angel," the man declared, grateful for the fire to warm their home. Little did he know that they were even luckier than having guardian angels. They had dragons to protect them. Anon and Emerald watched the man and his wife sit down at the kitchen table and begin to prepare their food for dinner. However, as Enon watched them, he felt the pull to look through another window to the house. He slithered up to the next window, just a bit further along, and peered into the room. Inside was a sleeping newborn baby in a crib. Enon's heart suddenly grew warm, and he felt overwhelmed with happiness. He gazed at the little mite sleeping so peacefully in its crib, and Enon recognized the baby straight away. This child was the golden boy that he had seen in his dream. "This is my special human," Enon whispered to Emerald contentedly. "His name is Fenris." Emerald gasped and smiled as she observed the tiny sleeping baby. "How do you know his name?" she asked Enon. Enon smiled at the sweet child, and his heart began to glow with shimmers of gold that radiated out of his chest. "I just know," he replied. Anon and Emerald watched the baby Fenris sleep for a while. They watched over him until his mother came into the room to check on him. Anon vowed that he would always be there to protect this special baby as they grew up together. He hoped that one day they would become great friends. Before long, the sun was beginning to set, and Emerald reminded Enon that they needed to return home to their families for dinner. Enon was disappointed to leave his special human when he had just found him, but he was pleased that he had completed his quest and now knew where to find his special human whenever he wanted to. Enon said goodbye to baby Fenris and promised that he would return as soon as he could. Then Enon and Emerald headed back home. It would be a long journey back, but luckily for Enon and Emerald, they had special dragon abilities that they could draw on to make the journey quicker. Enon turned to Emerald with a mischievous look in his eyes and suggested, "Do you want to race home?" Emerald giggled and replied, "Last one home is a rotten egg." Emerald set off running through the forest at her rampant dragon speed, and Enon thrust himself under the water and swam at a lightning speed through the rivers. The baby dragons were back at their homes before night fell, with a very impressive story to tell of how Enon, the baby water dragon, had found his special human already.